Hey, Wargaming and Warhammer 40k lore enthusiasts. In this video, we're going to compare 3rd edition 40k with 7th edition, as far as my opinions go, anyway. Alright, 7th edition, 3rd edition, came out in 1998. This one's 2014. This one's about 275 pages. This one's about 475. However, despite that huge variance in content, I paid about $5 for this one at a liquidation sale at a local gaming store, whereas I paid about $70 Canadian, $70 at through Kijiji. So they're both used. This one, hopefully, you can find it cheap as well, because I think as I will show you, it is well worth the cost. All right, 7th edition comes obviously in a big box if you get this version. And all right, now just comparing the cover, obviously 3rd edition, different art style. I would refer to this as a kind of comic book noir, I think I would say, whereas this is more of a higher art form, perhaps like a novella, a graphic novel. This to me speaks of a theme of a intent to say, hey, look, this is serious stuff. We are doing serious business here, serious art. We want this to be museum worthy in 100 years, which is cool. Whereas this is a lot more casual, like, oh, we got a crazy battle going on. We're cool. Yeah, that's right. All right. You may notice in the background here, there are basically corpses on crosses for banners to march into war with. I'm pretty sure they did away with that image in their more current artwork. Maybe it was too dark. Maybe it upset some religious person. I don't know. Okay, we're going to talk about the rules. We're going to compare the rules. In 7th edition, I'm going to assume that most people watching this video are already familiar, but 7th edition has such things as flyers, gargantuan creatures. They've got the most, well, given that they don't usually take away content, by now they've got the most armies, the most units, and that kind of thing, compared to older editions, obviously. Sorry. They have Lords of War. They've got a number of things that they had added at this point. They've got Maelstrom missions, which are pretty cool, I think. The game is fairly complex. You have lots of tables to roll on for different types of weapons and gargantuan stomps. You've got lots of special rules. I think a lot of people I've heard refer to 7th edition, even 6th, as being a fair bit bloated, given that there are so many different special rules, so many different types of units, and the rules end up taking a lot of time to get through. You have your own psychic phase. There's a fair bit of bookkeeping involved with that. But I would also like to argue the point that Games Workshop has a lot of special rules and a lot of stuff to cover special scenarios, because I think they want to make it a narrative game in a lot of ways. They want to keep it so that there are lots of cool things that can happen. There's a lot of story involved with these wars. And so that's why they have all that complication and special rules. And I think it's not necessarily a bad thing, though I am looking forward to trying 8th edition and seeing how awesome the faster game can be. There's a lot of different weapons, a lot of different unit types. I don't think in 7th edition the book actually has a list of all the weapons, the stats for the weapons, and doesn't have a list of the stats for all the basic units in each army. If you want to learn about those things, you pretty much have to go looking on the website and see what you can find there on Games Workshop, or just go in and pirate it, which I think is actually kind of unfortunate, because, as I'm going to show you in here, 3rd edition has a lot of content. It has less content than 7th edition, overall, especially if you were to include all the extra books you can buy with the codices and whatnot. But 3rd edition has the stats for every army and every unit that was available at the time that the book was published in 1998. And so here we have the Space Marines. Notice that there's 4 paragraphs of fluff to describe the Space Marines, and whereas nowadays they have quite a bit more fluff. And I will show that in here. Nope, that is in the lore book, which is Dark Millennium. Books upon books upon books. You notice that they'll have like a full page. Tau, of course, didn't exist in 3rd edition, but you have a full page of lore just to talk about what the Tau are, what they're about. The orcs have like a whole page that just describe one of the wogs that are going on, the big wars that they have. And there's lots of artwork here, lots of cool looking stuff, very good stuff. However, I almost feel like by the time they got to 7th edition, the lore had to be, I don't know, it gets a little bit redundant. I hope I'm not using too strong a word, but the way that it comes across, it's almost like when you go on the website and you read what each unit is according to when you're buying it. They try to sell it as though every single unit they're selling is the coolest unit ever. And that they're so awesome. But whereas when you actually play the game, obviously there's a huge difference between a small unit, a small little Gretchen versus a Wraith Lord, Wraith Knight, and that kind of thing. And it's almost gets weird. And the redundancy of it, what I mean is, let's take an example here. The Space Marines are the most powerful of the Imperium's warriors, and they are expected to accomplish almost impossible battlefield duties, lead vital assaults, confront the most horrendous of foes, and hold their position no matter how hopeless the odds. Now let's just replace every adjective with the word awesome. Space Marines, the most awesome of the Imperium's warriors, and they are expected to accomplish almost impossibly awesome battlefield duties. Okay, I added a word. Sue me. Lead awesome assaults, confront the most awesome of foes, and hold their positions no matter how awesome the odds. So that's what I mean by kind of a redundancy. Like, it all kind of sounds the same. This guy here, he looks like a statue. When you look at his hand here, he really looks like he is a statue in a battle rather than a person in the battle, except for the fact that his gun is actually smoking. And that, I feel, is like a very good point of the type of artwork that they have in the modern stuff, where it feels like it's a piece of art itself. They want to kind of give that idea in this, whereas in 3rd edition, it's not quite so much. Let's go back to the 3rd edition rules, 3rd edition art. Definitely more comic booky. They do have some variety, especially when you look at the aliens of the galaxy, their art. The Eldar have some very snazzy looking stuff. I'm a little partial towards Eldar because that's what I play. They didn't have a lot of colored pages. Most of it is in black and white. But you can see stat lines for every unit they had at the time, which, of course, a lot of it has changed by now. I shouldn't even say a lot. There's only, when it comes to the basic stats, there definitely have been some changes here and there. But you know what? When you compare these basic stats to the modern ones, you're going to find that a lot of them actually haven't changed, which is, I think, the more interesting thing. And so if you want to learn about get a gist of what all the armies are like, it's easier to find this book and pay a tiny bit of money and understand that, yes, there's going to be some differences, there's going to be definitely some additions compared to what's out today, rather than to try and buy every codex in 7th edition, which is just a ton of money. So if you're cheap like me, get the 3rd edition book. And you can also learn a lot about the history of stuff. I love to get my head into the gears and guts of what makes the game itself work. And when you look over the history of it and look at where the units have come from, where things started, you can really get an idea for that. The colored artwork in here, of course, is just these photographs of units to try to give you an idea of what painted guys might look like. One thing that they did in 3rd edition, notice real quick here, this guy's on a square base, and he looks very medieval. Obviously a fantasy figure that was snuck into the 40k stuff. Now, one thing that I love here is that this guy has a caption, just says he's a bloodthirster, greater demon of Khorne. These guys here, plague marines. These guys here, plague bearers. They say exactly what it is, and so you can learn something from these photos, a lot more than you can learn from Galaxy of War, dropping stuff, hand in the camera. No! Who filmed this? In the 7th edition photographs, you don't see a lot of captions that describe anything. This is an MS Dread Knight, Sword Titan, which does caption that, but then you go and look at other ones, and there really isn't a whole lot of caption just to describe what these guys are. The photography is definitely beautiful. The colors are amazing. I envy the kind of guys that get to work on this stuff because it is really cool to see. What's this tank? I don't know. Maybe this one has a caption that says what it is. Nope, just a random quote. Speaking of random quotes, okay, I don't really want to knock 7th edition, by the way. I'm saying that there are some differences, and I'm trying to point out what flaws they do have. But speaking of random quotes, the fluff in 3rd edition was largely done with just kind of inserted little pieces, inserted little excerpts here and there, random quotes here and there. For example, this one here from Inquisitor Sevek, and things like that. The stuff that they do have in here, though, I find is very narrative. You'll have this here is a report from an Inquisitor having gone to a planet and stopped a rebellion. Things like that are really cool. In the rules of 3rd edition, I'm just bouncing forth all over the place here from lore to art to rules. But in the rules of 3rd edition, the general impression is really one of you kind of have to make up some of the nuances as you go when you play this game. The rules aren't meant to be hard and fast. For example, that's all, folks. That's a Warner Brothers quote that's just thrown in there by Andy Chambers. Who knows why? I hope you get a lot of fun out of Warhammer 40,000. If you have any comments, suggestions, hate mail, death threats, praise, or witticisms to impart, please don't hesitate to write in. Much of the development of the Warhammer 40,000 game has been spurred on by its players, and long may it continue. All the best, and may the fickle gods of chance be kind to your plans. The first and most fundamental principle of Wargaming Rules are they are loose, woolly affairs, which never detail exactly what you want to know in any given situation. Why, I hear you, chorus. Isn't that your job, you charlatan? You may want to use stronger terminology here. It's because wargaming isn't played on a gridded out playing area with a set number of strictly defined pieces. Wargaming is all about color, movement, and breathing life into the armies you lovingly amass and then drive headlong into your opponent. I think that says a lot of where this game came from. It has trouble with balance, and it has trouble with tournament rules because it was never really designed for that. It was designed to be loosey-goosey, woolly and loose, as he says here, and to be a little bit more towards narrative stuff. Some of the big differences they had in rules back then, in the assault, when you would consolidate after an assault, you could get into another assault with another unit and just kind of keep on going like it did a domino effect. The shooting, you had to measure ranges before shooting, and that is something that was kept, I think, in tournaments up till, I think, 4th or 5th edition, or maybe even 6th. Except at this point, it wasn't really written as a hard and fast rule. It was written as, hey, if you guys agree on doing this, then do it. If not, then you can just go ahead and pre-measure. In other words, you had to say, I'm going to shoot that unit over there, and I don't get to measure until I've decided I'm shooting him. As soon as I've measured, I've already committed. If he's outside of my measurement range, my weapon's range, I've missed. That's how the game went. And so it's quite different in that sense. So that's pretty much it. There are a lot of things that I could say about this book and about the differences. I do highly recommend it. The missions. There are 4 different categories of missions in 3rd edition, and they have lots of detailed rules for each one of them. So you roll as to which category of mission you're playing, and then within each category there is 3 to 6 missions in each one of them. And oh man, this stuff is just great inspiration for making your own missions. They have great inspiration in here as well for making your own campaigns, using experience systems to keep your units continuing on as they survive from battle to battle. It's pretty cool. I highly recommend this awesome book. So go out and find it if you can. 7th edition is also good, but there's similarities and there's differences. There you go.